In our super connected society, we now use AI or artificial intelligence almost daily, knowingly or unknowingly, because the tech industry has now implemented AI in most of their programs. And if AI might have the answer for a lot of our current and future problems, its impact on our environment is a huge topic that is not covered enough, in my opinion. In this video, I want to talk about AI's environmental impact. If that sounds interesting, keep on watching. Before diving into this complex subject, let's first understand what AI is exactly. According to IBM's definition of AI is a technology that enables computers and machines to simulate human learning, comprehension, problem solving, decision making, creativity, and autonomy. Although AI exists since the 50s when machines exhibiting human intelligence were first created, now we have a new type of AI which is called generative AI. This means that this form of artificial intelligence can create complex, original content, such as long-form text, high-quality images, or even like realistic videos and audios. And these complex, original content are created in response to a user's prompt or request. According to the Cambridge Dictionary, a prompt is an instruction given to an AI using natural language rather than computer language that is created out of zeros and ones. Now, you might wonder how something digital can have an impact on our environment. And it's normal for us to not fully grasp the extent of AI's impact on the environment because there is a clear separation between where you interact with an AI system and how that interaction has come to be. Most AI models indeed run on data centers that are physically far away from us, the consumers and users. On top of that, every single aspect of the AI life cycle consumes natural resources such as energy, water, and minerals, and also releases greenhouse gases. I'll display a graph for you to understand what I mean by a life cycle. For this reason, when we talk about AI impact on our environment, we have to keep in mind that it is actually a broad question. What kind of impact are we considering? The water used or the CO2 created? Are we taking into account the creation of AI or only its use? There are three different areas in which AI impacts our planet. It's the mineral extraction, the water used, and the greenhouse gases emissions. In terms of minerals, I'm not going to expand too much on it in this video, but I wrote an article for a Canadian media on deep seabed mining, and I also did a deep dive into what dark oxygen means that touch on the issues surrounding the mining industry, specifically in the ocean. I'll link these resources down below for you to learn more on the topic. That being said, if you are interested in a video or an article about the mining industry in specific and its impact, maybe not necessarily only the environmental impact, but also social, political, economic, let me know in the comments below and I'll make that happen. Every day, minerals are being extracted a bit everywhere in the world, and they are used for many different things. For the case of AI, every time we query an AI, our request runs through actual physical hardware to provide us with an answer. As AI models get bigger and more complex, they need more powerful hardware to run them. One common hardware component for AI systems is the GPU, or graphical processing unit. And usually, an individual AI model requires multiple GPUs. So, computing chips like GPUs are built on a thin layer of a semiconductor material, usually it's silicone, upon which components made out of different types of metals are added. These metals are aluminum, copper, tin, tantalum, lithium, gallium, germanium, palladium, cobalt, and tungsten. Some of these metals, like cobalt and tungsten, are considered to be conflict materials. That means they are mined and or traded in areas of conflict and contribute towards perpetuating human rights abuse and armed conflict on top of the environmental cost of extracting those minerals in the first place. In terms of water, not only is water used during the extraction process and the manufacturing process of the hardware, water is extremely important for data centers. I mentioned briefly those earlier in the video, but let me explain what they are exactly. According to IBM, a data center is a physical room, a building, or even a facility that houses IT infrastructures for building, running, and delivering applications and services. It also stores and manages the data associated with those applications and services. You have probably seen pictures of these centers. I don't know if you have a room in your home where you have various electronic devices. Maybe you have a computer and a TV and a gaming console. And I don't know if you've ever used all of them at once for like a certain amount of time. But if that happened to you, you might have noticed that the room starts getting hotter. So now imagine a room with hundreds of thousands of servers carrying out intensive round-the-clock computation. They need constant cooling. So that's when water comes to play, specifically clean water, and I'm going to explain that why. One of the key ways to keep these rooms cool is by pumping clean water through radiators in the data center, which absorb the heat in the air. The water used cannot be salt water or gray water because it could potentially clog or corrode the cooling system. This water then has to be cooled down, and usually a big portion of it evaporates in the process. So after cooling, the remaining water is either reused by the cooling system in that facility, in that data center, or is discharged back into aquifers for our everyday use. So the amount of water used depends heavily on the size of the data center, but according to studies on the topic, it can range from 0.18 to 1.1 liters of water per kilowatt hour of energy. Unfortunately, there are no official figures for specific AI models, but third-party research has estimated that GPT-3, the AI model used for ChatGPT, for example, uses 500 milliliters of water for every 10 to 50 queries. An average hyperscale data center, such as those used for training AI models, for example, use around 2.1 million liters of water every single day. Keep in mind also that some of those centers are built in areas with little water supply, such as the Arizona desert. By the way, the training of AI models refers to the process of basically providing data to an AI model that is meant to enable it to produce more accurate predictions. Which brings me to the last area in which AI impacts our environment, the greenhouse gases emissions. I'm going to spend a bit more time on this part because there is more studies on it. Actually, the initial work on the environmental impacts of AI focused on estimating the CO2 emissions released during model training. Keep in mind that depending on the data center required for our use of a specific AI, its impact is going to be different. According to Statista, in 2024, the US is the country with most data centers in the world. It has 5,381 data centers across the country, which means that roughly 30% of data centers in the world are in the US. And the centers in the US use electricity from nuclear power or coal, depending on where they are. A study from June 2024 estimates that 1,000 prompts to create text only use 0.042 kilowatt hour of electricity. So if the center is based in Oregon, 1,000 prompts create on average 1.2 grams of CO2. And that's for prompts generating text only. If we asked the same AI from the same data center to create just one image, it would use 2.9 grams of CO2. In fact, researchers have found distinct difference depending on the modality, meaning are we asking the AI to create text or images, as well as whether the model was creating new content or returning existing content. So image-based tasks and those that create new content use more energy. Now that I gave you all those numbers, let's play a little game. Let's say you use ChatGPT and ask 10 prompts. You will create 0.12 grams of CO2. If you ask Stable Diffusion for 10 images, it will be 2.9 grams of CO2. If you spend an hour watching an episode of your favorite show on Netflix, it will create 22.9 grams of CO2. And now let's compare it to eating a 200 grams steak. The steak creates 20 kilograms of CO2. Of course, keep in mind that these numbers are rough estimations, so they are not exact. But what we realize through putting those numbers in perspective is that eating a steak is still worse for the environment than using ChatGPT. So you might wonder, where is the issue then? Well, all these examples I just gave you are about our individual use of AI. But this is a flawed way of looking at the problem because individual use doesn't show the full picture. We need to zoom out and look at the industry as a whole. So far, the IT industry and its data centers have less impact than the meat industry or even the petrochemical industry. Studies show that only 1 to 6% of greenhouse gases emissions come from the IT industry. And from this percentage, an even smaller percentage account for their data centers. That being said, it is important to look at how the industry has been growing lately. According to the Electric Power Research Institute, between 2017 and 2021, the electricity consumption of Meta, Microsoft, and Amazon has more than doubled. In its report, the Institute declares that while AI applications are estimated to use only 10 to 20% of data centers' electricity today, that percentage is growing rapidly. This percentage is set to increase at an average 70% in coming years and double by 2030, according to a report from Goldman Sachs. Proprietary Morgan Stanley research indicates that by 2027, generative AI could use as much energy as Spain needed to power itself in 2022. That's huge. But the fact that the IT industry is growing doesn't necessarily mean that the greenhouse gases emissions have to grow with it. That depends on how the electricity is generated, and that's where a lot of the focus is right now. Data center owners and operators have adopted decarbonization and net zero targets. They say that they want to meet their electricity needs with renewable energy. For Morgan Stanley's global head of sustainability and clean tech research, the surge in AI-driven power demand could serve as an underappreciated driver for more manufacturing and development of wind, solar, energy storage, and fuel cells. But although renewable energies have to be part of the solution, it's not always easy to believe what people who benefit from the tech industry say. They might want to truly meet their targets, but if it comes at the cost of their benefits, will they necessarily choose the better option for the planet? On top of that, there is a lack of transparency about the energy needs from companies in the industry. All the studies I have read highlighted the fact that the numbers they were giving were estimates because the tech companies themselves did not give specific numbers. And I fact-checked that and I couldn't find numbers either. So a big part of the solution is the industry's transparency, and that can only come with regulation from countries. So for example, the European Union launched the European Green Deal, which is a set of proposals to make the EU fit for reducing net greenhouse gas emissions, and to which EU's actions and policies have to contribute. As part of that deal, the EU climate law has set legally binding targets for carbon neutrality by 2050, and AI systems used in energy management, smart grids, and environmental monitoring will need to comply with this law. It also stipulates that the providers of general purpose AI models specifically should share the known or estimated energy consumption of the models. It also provides that high-risk AI systems should report on resource performance, such as consumption of energy and of other resources, during the AI system's life cycle. So this could include water and minerals, depending on the level of detail of the standards that will guide compliance to this reporting obligation. And by the way, these high-risk AI systems are AI systems that the European Commission considers to pose a high risk to the health, safety, or fundamental rights of EU citizens, but whose major socio-economic benefits outweighed these risks, otherwise they would have been banned. In the US, a few senators introduced the Artificial Intelligence Environmental Impacts Act in 2024. This piece of legislation proposed to carry out a comprehensive study on the environmental impacts of AI and developed a voluntary reporting system for its reporting. While the bill is currently under review, it would be the first piece of legislation that directly addresses this topic in the US. Finally, individually, I think we can be a bit more mindful of our usage of AI. Although, as I said, focusing on the individual is part of the solution but really doesn't tackle the whole issue, I think it's important to be aware why we do the things we do. So AI models like the ones used for ChatGPT are not search engines. These models create 30 to 40 times more CO2 emissions than a quick and basic search on Google, for example. And that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. As always, I will link down below all my resources so you can go and check those out. Please like the video and share it with your friends. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.